Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 448. I'm Phil Graham, and welcome to December 9th. I have a great episode for you guys today. I'm going to be talking about the Facebook and Instagram ad that I just keep coming back to, and I still highly recommend it today. You know, there's a lot of talk about what's working right now in Facebook ads. There's trends that come and go, trends that shift, and this one style of ad and structure of ad continues to be one of my favorites by far. I've used it for many different types of clients, industries, offers, products, services, and many more. And it's simple, it's powerful though, and best of all, it's not gimmicky, it's not clickbaity, and it's not spammy. So I'm really excited to share it with you guys today because it is really amazing and I love this style of ad. Now we're going to keep this episode short, sweet, full of value, and very actionable for you guys as usual. It's not going to take very long for me to cover this. But before we start, if you're wanting any help with your ads, whether you want some one-on-one coaching and consulting directly with me, or maybe you want somebody to just take it over and run the ads for you. For either one of those things, you can just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and let's connect. So let's jump right in. There are two key parts to this ad, which is really one of my favorite ads that I run, and it is so powerful. And part one is going to be like the core structure of the ad, and then part two is going to be the secret sauce. Let's start with part one, though, the core structure. And that core structure is hook, story, and offer. You've probably heard that before, but it's because it's so powerful. So you've got to start with a hook. If you don't have a good hook in your ad, how are you ever going to get anybody's attention? You've got to be able to cut through the noise and get their attention. Not only should you have a good hook, but you should have it in a few different places. So the places I like best for the hook are the headline of your ad, also the first sentence or paragraph of your ad copy that goes above your creative, and then the creative itself, whether it's an image or a video. All of those things could have your hook. You could have it in one place, or even better, in all of those places. You have to be able to grab attention. And you want to make the hook about the problem you solve for your audience, or the thing you help them gain, or something that's very specific to your audience. The hook should not just be about your product or service or about how great you are. It should be about them. Now, there are exceptions, and certain times I'll run an ad that's a little bit different than that. But overall, for most of you guys, I highly recommend most of the time making the hook about your audience, not about you and not about your product or service, but about how you make their life better or how you solve their problems. Now, once you have a great hook, the next part is the story. It makes a big difference in a lot of situations to tell a story that's true, obviously, but that allows you to connect with your audience. It could be a customer story. It could be a founder story about why you're doing what you do, why you're serving the people you serve. It could be a pain to solution story. It could be a story of struggle and then you've succeeded. There's so many different ways you could go about this, but your story, and it doesn't have to be long. It could be one paragraph. It could be less. You could also have it in a video that's less than 60 seconds, but your story really should relate to a pain point or a problem that you help people solve. Or let's say you don't solve problems, but you give them joy. Well, that would be part of the story. It's about the journey. It's not about whatever you're selling. It's about the journey of why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and it should be an interesting story. Again, this isn't going to be, 5 paragraphs. It's going to be pretty short, but when you start with a hook and then you have a nice little story behind it that's true and authentic, that's really powerful. And then the last part of that first core structure is the offer. That's normal. You're going to take them through the hook, the story, and then what are you offering them? And it could be an offer of transformation. And again, the offer doesn't always mean you're offering a product. or a download. The offer might be the solution that you're helping them with. Think of this for a second. If you were an airline and you flew people to Hawaii, yeah, your offer certainly could be like on some of your ads, you're going to have an offer where you're going to have a deal on discounted tickets. That could be your offer. But in another ad, your offer might focus more on Hawaii, the actual destination, what they actually want. The flight just gets them to where they want to go, right? They're really most focused on the destination, and your offer might focus more on that destination and how you can help them get there better than anybody else. That's just like a random example, but the key is the offer isn't always just about your product or service or your price, although sometimes it is, but other times it's about what's important to them and what that destination is. And so you want to have that. So with the offer, do some different things. Sometimes have an offer with a deadline and a price. Other times have an offer that's more focused on things that are not just about that. And that's a great thing to test. And you want to think of it as like one seamless path. You start with attention, and then you go to connection where you connect with them, and then there's action, whatever they need to do. Now let's talk about the stuff that I think is even more important, but all of this is important, but this is really the stuff that is the secret sauce, in my opinion. And there's really two parts to it. There's empathy and there's differentiation. So empathy is really important, and you can show that in so many different ways. Having empathy doesn't mean feeling sorry for somebody or anything like that. And it's going to really depend on the type of product and service that you sell, the problems you solve, and things like that. But no matter what, you've got customers or clients that could buy from you or they could buy from somebody else. And so having empathy for currently the problem is unsolved until they buy your product or service, or currently they don't have what they want. They don't have some kind of a result that they're looking for or wanting. Even if they want a t-shirt so they have more confidence, whatever the case may be, you've got to think about how they're feeling. And that is why they actually want whatever it is you're selling. So if you actually run ads and you actually have empathy for your customers and clients, that can make a huge difference. Let me give you a random example, but this should really bring it home for you to where you know exactly what I'm talking about. I want you to imagine that you have a lot of back pain and you've had it for a long time. You can't get it to go away, and you're going to go see a chiropractor. You don't know who you're going to see. Nobody referred you to anybody, and you see two ads for chiropractors. One ad just talks about the problem. Hey, we help people with back pain. We got a special offer. Come on in. Okay, that's ad number one. But let's say ad number two actually talks about the problem and says, you know what? I used to have back pain, or I've worked with a lot of people that have had back pain for a long time, and I know it sucks. Sometimes you can't even sleep very good, can you? You may not be able to play in the park with your kids. It really affects a lot of areas in your life. That's one of the reasons why I focus so much on helping my patients. And then you can go into the service of how he or she helps their patients overcome back pain. Between those two ads, what would you pick? Now, everybody's different, but I would bet money that way more people would pick ad number two, because ad number two described the problem before offering a solution. Once they describe the problem really well, they can offer a solution, they can have a discount, they can do all that same stuff. But they describe the problem and they empathize with your situation. In my opinion, that is 100 times better than ad number one. It doesn't mean I wouldn't do ad number one, because I test a lot of things. And so I might do both. But what I see working way more often than not would be something like ad number two. So you have to figure out for your product or service, whatever you sell, digital course, whatever it is, how can you show some empathy for your potential customers or clients in your ad? In your ad, don't wait until they click to go to your website. Show it in your ad. That could be a game changer. So there's empathy. The second part of that secret sauce is differentiation. And by the way, the reason I call it the secret sauce, not only is it super powerful, but I see hardly any ads doing this. And even if they try, it's usually not done right or very well. So I think it really is a secret sauce. It's not just about doing it, it's about doing it right at a high level. So differentiation, no matter what you sell, people can essentially, in their mind anyway, you might think you're so unique what you sell that they can't get it anywhere else. I promise you, your customers and clients know that they can get something similar somewhere else, and maybe even cheaper. Whether they're right or not, that's what they think. And so you've got to also differentiate. It's not enough to just talk about what you offer and how you can help them, but you've got to talk about why you're different, whether that's your company, what your values are, your product or service, or there's many different ways to show differentiation. But you've got to do two things. You've got to talk about and show your differentiation in one of these ads, number one. And then number two, this is like one of the most important parts, and this is where people really mess up. So you really want to pay close attention to this. Number two, not only do you talk about your differentiation, but the most important part is you follow that up in the ad with how that differentiation actually helps and benefits your customers or clients. It blows my mind how many people forget that part. They just talk about how great they are or how different they are, and they forget to actually say, well, here's how that benefits you, because that's what they care about. They don't care about how you're different. They care about how that difference is better for them than purchasing from somebody else or somewhere else. So that is my secret sauce part of this ad formula. I obviously run lots of ads of other types of formulas too, but this is one of my favorites, if not my favorite. And again, I've used it in tons of industries and tons of situations. So I just keep coming back to the structure because it can really connect with your audience in ways that most other ads don't. And when you get it right, that connection, people crave that. And when it comes from an actual ad, that's almost like a unicorn because hardly any ads do that. So it can also help you stand out. So remember, hook, story, offer, and you layer that in with empathy and differentiation. Test it out, try it out. Let me know how it goes. It's very powerful. It's not some magic button. You got to make it work and you got to tailor it to your business. And as always, just a reminder, it's always important to point out that every business is unique. Results can vary. There's no guaranteed outcomes. So always keep that in mind. So my friends, episode 448 is in the books. Thank you guys so much for being here. I got a great episode coming for you next week as well. And I will talk to you on next week's episode. Have a great week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.